Good morning. My name is Belinda Cardwell, and I'm a counselor at Genesis Women's Shelter and Support. And I'm hosting the Coping Skills webinar this morning along with a fellow counselor who I'll let introduce herself.
Yes, hi everyone. I'm Victoria O'Connor. I'm really glad to be here, and Belinda and I are going to talk about some coping skills.
Okay, so just a few matters of business, so to speak, before we get started. So this presentation is for educational purposes only, and please consider your own safety and your own situation before putting any of these practices into place, just to be safe. Also, when you're watching this webinar, please make sure you watch it in a safe place with safe people. Using headphones can also help ensure that no one else can hear what you're watching. If you feel like someone's monitoring your phone or computer, remember to clear your browser history after watching. And if you need to leave the Zoom webinar quickly, remember you need to click end a couple of times and then close out the Zoom page. So because of confidentiality reasons, please do not use the chat feature on Zoom. And we're saying that because when you use the chat feature, your name and comment will also be seen by anyone using the live video, watching the live video, or the video recording once it's posted on YouTube. And speaking of YouTube, if you leave any comments on the YouTube video, your name and comment will also be seen by everyone else who watches the video. So please do not use the chat feature and do not comment on the YouTube video if that's when you watch this recording. If you have any questions about anything that is said today, you can contact Victoria or myself. Our names and contact information will be presented at the end of the webinar. And again, we do not monitor or respond to any comments or questions left on the YouTube video recordings. So please contact us directly if you need help. So as far as crisis and support, if you are in crisis, if you need help with emergency safety planning, or you're looking for emergency shelter because of domestic violence, please call our 24-hour hotline. That number is 214-946-4357. Or if you'd like to sign up for counseling and want to talk to a counselor about your situation, that number is 214-389-7700. So again, here's some more hotline information listing the Genesis Women's Shelter and Support number at 214-946-4357. The National Domestic Violence Hotline is 800-799-7233. They also have a chat feature that you can access through their website at thehotline.org. And then we're listing also the National Suicide Hotline, which is 800-273-8255. Okay, coping skills. So coping skills are important for survivors of domestic violence, whether you are still living with your abuser or have left the relationship. So what exactly are our coping skills? I know we talk a lot about coping skills in almost every group that you will attend, every individual session. You've probably heard a lot about coping skills in the news because of the COVID-19 situation, but they're simply put tools to handle uncomfortable emotions or distressful situations. So it's tools or maneuvers or strategies just to kind of help you feel a little better. So why we use coping skills is because of that sense of relief and or a sense of empowerment. It increases your sense of emotional balance. And emotional balance really is just the way to feel emotions without being overwhelmed, or feel the emotions so you don't suppress them so they later come out sideways. And another reason for using coping skills, of course, is decrease the intensity of trauma symptoms. So as we talked about in a previous webinar, there are a lot of common symptoms that one can experience, such as anxiety, hypervigilance, sadness, anger, irritability. And so these coping skills will help with these symptoms. If you are a little more stressed than normal, feeling a little more overwhelmed because of all that's going on in the world, coping skills will help alleviate some of the intensity of the trauma symptoms. So how do you use coping skills? Well, first of all, I want you to realize you probably already do use coping skills. So just kind of, as we go through these list of coping skills, you might identify with what you already do. So be aware of what works for you, because not everything works for everyone, and not every coping skill works in every situation. So we want you also to expand to a variety of tools in your toolbox, and then also reevaluate your tools as time goes on, because sometimes you change a little bit, what you need will change. And just briefly, I want to mention the emotional impact of the COVID-19 threat. I mean, that's something we're all going through, and it's kind of strained us a little bit as far as our anxiety and our emotional well-being. So coping skills are really important at this time in our life. So before we get to the specifics, I want to just jump in and see if Victoria has anything to add.
Yeah, I think, yeah, definitely this is a good overview of coping skills. And also, like Belinda said, you know, everybody uses coping skills, whether we realize we're using them or not. And so coping is basically anything that helps you calm, helps you regulate your body, helps you to feel better when maybe you're feeling overwhelmed. And so chances are you're already doing a lot of things that are coping and are helping you cope. And so this list that we're going to go over is hopefully going to help you have some new ideas, give you some new tools to use, and to help you think of some other ideas when maybe what works for you isn't being quite as effective, or you need some other new ideas.
So we're going to go through coping skills by category. And the first category is more like immediate coping skills, situational coping skills, something that's going to help you on the spot. Maybe you're having a particularly bad day, or you've had some bad news. So these are skills you might use just to address that particular situation. And these categories are distraction, grounding, and emotional release. Then the next set of categories are more long-term, something you do kind of on a daily basis to kind of help with that emotional balance I talked about earlier, that self-care, thought challenge, accessing your higher self. And then we add another category of safety planning, because it is so important as a coping skill, if you're in a domestic violence situation, to have that safety planning in place. So let's go with distraction. Obviously, it's pretty much what it sounds. You distract yourself from what's worrying you. So you can go have a conversation, you can listen to radio, do some reading, do some puzzles, watch TV, play computer games. You can go outside and garden. You can solve a problem. You can make a list. Maybe put down all those things that are rolling around in your head. Or maybe you can kind of set a schedule to help you feel like you have some sense of control. You can go learn something. You can clean and organize, which I know that is not my coping skill, but anyway. Or you can practice arts and crafts. So some of these are just, you can do for a short time. Some you might expand into like a little bit longer time to help you with the distraction. But both, whether you do it short term or long term, they both give you a break for the heart and mind. And they also help you get through a crisis, but they are short-term relief because there is a time limit. We would all like to kind of be distracted by a good book for hours and hours upon end, but that's not practical. And some of the underlying issues may remain, and if you're on some medications, they may interfere with your concentration. And what I do, I probably shouldn't cop to this, but I'm a big spider solitaire fan on my phone. So you can use apps for this kind of category. I do place a time limit on myself though, when I play these games. Next category is grounding. It's pretty much what it says, just kind of grounding yourself in. It's also big into mindfulness, which is a topic that gets talked about a lot these days, which is just focusing on the present moment while acknowledging your feelings, your thoughts, your body sensations. So we're going to use our body and our senses through our deep breaths, smelling fragrances, tasting food, seeing the colors, hearing the sounds, feeling the grass as you walk barefoot, through movement, with yoga or exercise or just meditating. And the pros is that it helps stop or slow dissociation. And that basically means you're feeling numb or disconnected or a little bit out of touch with the present. And it can help reduce the physicality of anxiety. The cons, it's sometimes okay to disassociate. That's how your mind protects you. But grounding helps you kind of become in the here and now. I think Victoria has an example of what she uses for grounding.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I've actually been holding my little stress ball here as we've been going to help ground me. You know, maybe I was feeling a little nervous about being live on the internet and recording this. And so even just being able to fidget with this in my hands is able to ground me, help me keep connected to the present moment, and helps reduce some of those physical sensations. You know, maybe my heart was racing if I'm feeling nervous, or I'm feeling kind of like my body wants to move. And so even something like squeezing a stress ball can be grounding. Even if you don't have something like this, it could be anything like that you can kind of fidget with. So even like for example, like a ponytail holder, a rubber band or something, anything like that could be a subtle way of grounding you. So even if you were, let's say, like in a meeting at work and feeling nervous, that's something maybe you could do under the desk where nobody would really see that you're doing that, but that can help ground you and help you stay more present focused. And these grounding techniques are really good when you are experiencing a lot of anxiety. You know, maybe you notice you're starting to get so anxious that you think you might be having a panic attack, or it feels like you're going so, you know, you're feeling so overwhelmed that you're getting out of that area where you feel like you can handle it. And so grounding techniques are really good to help with that sensation when you feel really anxious, or potentially the opposite, when you're feeling maybe more numb or more like that dissociated feeling that we were talking about. If you're feeling more down, maybe not really fully connected to the present moment, or not really fully connected to your body, these grounding techniques can also help you when you're at more of that end, help you come back to the present moment and to stay connected to the present.
And speaking of staying connected to the present, we're going to actually do a grounding technique all together. It's called the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 technique. And so we're going to run through our senses like we've been talking about, being mindful of our body and where we are. So we're going to start off with naming 5 things we can see. Then we're going to go to 4 things we can feel, 3 things we can hear, 2 things we can smell, and 1 thing we can taste. So we're going to go back to the beginning. And what are 5 things you can see right now? I know I can see the closet door. I can see my computer. I can see Victoria on the screen. I can see my phone. And then I can see my mouse, computer mouse. 4 things I can feel. I can feel a sensation sitting on the chair. I can feel a sensation of my sweater on my skin. I can feel the ceiling fan circulating the air. And then I can feel my feet firmly planted on the floor. 3 things I can hear. I can hear the ceiling fan. I can hear the buzz of some kind of electronic equipment I have in the office. And then I can hear the distant traffic, especially because it was raining this morning, so I can hear the sound of puddles. 2 things I can smell. I can smell kind of the AC air. I know that sounds funny, but it does have maybe even a lack of smell. And I'm going to cheat and pick up my coffee mug and smell my coffee. And I'm going to keep that mug because I'm going to taste my coffee. So the good thing about that little technique is you can do it anywhere. You can do it while you're waiting for traffic, as long as you're, of course, paying attention to when the light changes. But you can do it while you're waiting at a doctor's office, or while, I've had clients tell me it's been very helpful while they're waiting to go into court. So it's kind of very portable, and that's why I like that grounding technique.
Mm-hmm. And even if you didn't smell or taste anything, even just being able to notice and just to check in with that sense, that is also grounding, just the practice of it. So even if you didn't smell or taste anything, just being able to notice that and be aware of that is also grounding.
Right, good point. So you're just kind of activating that sense, even if you didn't feel like it was really participating in the grounding. So the next category is called emotional release. And this is where you can yell, scream, run to get your emotions out. You can try a cold shoulder. You can let yourself cry and sob. You can watch a funny video and laugh. You can try boxing, popping balloons. You can crank up some music and dance. So you're working on your overwhelming emotions, releasing the pressure of these emotions. And this is particularly good for anger and fear, but it's certainly not limited to getting out those emotions. The cons are you can't do it everywhere. And it might feel a little odd because you're doing something very demonstrative. And others might think you're acting a little crazy. So again, you can't do it everywhere, but if you feel like you have some privacy, just go ahead and yell, scream, or yell into your pillow, or hopefully you laugh a lot. My personal favorite, and I actually do keep this in my desk drawer, is bubble wrap. And I like to pop the bubbles. This sheet's been a little popped out, so it's not doing as loud. But that's one of the ways I get out some of my intense emotions.
Yeah, and this is one, again, like Belinda said, it's hard to do in every situation. So, you can't be like out in the mall and just yelling. So you have to be a little bit more strategic about when you're letting yourself use this emotional release. And I think this is a really important one. A lot of times, we have this pressure on ourselves that we can't be really feeling our emotions, or maybe we kind of stuff them down. And unfortunately, it's going to be like a Coke bottle that you shake. If you keep stuffing down your emotions, eventually they're all going to come out and explode in probably a way that wouldn't really be helpful, or a way that we don't really want it to come out. And so even if it's just allowing yourself small moments to release, and just like a kind of like a pressure valve, just let them out for just a moment. So that way it doesn't explode when you don't want it to. And one thing I always talk about is crying is a coping skill. I know sometimes people don't think that that is, or maybe, they feel like they cry too much and so it doesn't feel good. But if you're someone who maybe doesn't really cry that much, or you don't, allow yourself to have that part of yourself or explore that part of yourself, maybe even just letting yourself have that moment. Maybe you put on a sad song or a sad movie and let yourself cry, because that can be releasing. It can release that pressure. And also that act of crying does act in the brain similar to how it does when you take like a Tylenol or an Advil. And so it actually can be like pain relief to cry. So I always talk about crying and how that can be helpful. I know it's hard, especially too for our moms, feeling like I don't want to cry in front of my kids, or I don't have time to address my feelings or my emotions. I got to focus on my kids. And so maybe it's scheduling even, 5 minutes at the end of the day before you go to bed. Those small moments for yourself. What do you need? How can you let out those emotions and release those?
Yes, I want to just ditto what Victoria said. I always tell my clients I'm a big fan of tears. I think they really help us process the emotions and kind of help us get through them. So I always have plenty of Kleenex, and I'm ready to be there if a client needs to cry. So, all right, now we're going to move on to our next kind of grouping of categories, and that is more the stuff you do on a long-term basis, that you do a little bit every day just to kind of get yourself a little more balanced. And we're going to start off with self-care. And this doesn't have to be expensive. It's, in fact, the quicker and the cheaper, the better, obviously, because then you'll be more likely to do it. So you could do something like massaging your hands with hand cream. You can manicure your own nails. You can cook a special meal, buy a very small treat, clean your house, or just make your bed. I know if I make my bed in the morning, I feel a lot more organized and ready to start the day. You can take a bubble bath or a long shower, and you can just brush your hair. So you're kind of focusing on yourself, because so many women have had to focus externally in order to survive a domestic violence relationship. Their wants and needs have been put on the back burner because they're so intent on watching what others react, and they kind of forget that it's really important to take care of themselves. So a pro is you become your own best friend, your own support worker. It's great for guilt or shame, and you deserve it. The cons might be might be hard to do because you feel like you shouldn't take time or effort for yourself, but you should. And it might feel superficial or selfish, but it's not, because we need to take care of ourselves so we can meet all the other demands on us. So what I'd like to do is I'm going to do a quick hand massage to show you how easy it is to pamper yourself. And Victoria's going to join in with the hand massage. So I'm going to do mine without lotion just to show you can do it anytime, any place. But Victoria's going to add the lotion to her hand massage.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I just have this little aromatherapy lotion here. It's a stress relief. This is one of my favorite scents. And so even just being able to put on some lotion on my hands, that's a way that I can show myself some love and take care of myself.
Okay, so since I'm right-handed, I'm going to start with my left hand. So you take your thumb on whatever hand you're going to be doing the massage, put it on the back of your hand and just kind of circle. I like counterclockwise. I'm not sure why, that just feels a little better to me. And then I'm going to do that about 5 times. Then you're going to move to the knuckles. And again, just kind of do the circling in the knuckles area. Move to the next finger, again, circling about 3 or 5 times. To the middle finger, to the index finger, to the thumb. Now flip your hand over, kind of do the fatty part of the back of the hand, the palm of the hand, and then the other fatty part. Then go to the wrist, end up in the palm of your hand, circling, and then just kind of hold for a second. Take a deep breath, and out again. Then we're going to do the other hand because this one can't be left out. So again, on the thumb on the back of the hand and circles. And your touch will depend on what feels comfortable to you. Again, the knuckles, going through each knuckle, middle finger, index finger, thumb. Then turning your hand over to the palm, parts of your palm that have the most of the tissue, your wrist, and again in the center of your palm, and hold. Deep breath in, deep breath out.
That was really nice, Belinda. That felt good. And, that was even really grounding, just, focusing on what that felt like to massage my hands and really smelling that lotion too. That was a way that I felt really grounded.
And that's a good point, is that coping skills can be in more than one category. So it's not like you only do grounding skills for grounding. If they help you with self-care, then you bring them into that category. There's a lot of overlap, I should say. And I guess what distinguishes them is why you're doing them. If you're doing it because there's a certain emotion you want to kind of release the intensity of, or are you just doing it because you want to take care of yourself? And the hand massage only took a couple of minutes, so it's, if you're worried about time, that's one good example of feeling better. And if you've done the hand massage and you still feel maybe like you need a little bit of release, then you just do it again, or maybe you add some of the grounding technique. Just kind of stop and check in with yourself and see how you're feeling and decide whether that was good, or do you want to add something else just to kind of get you to a little better place. Next category is thought challenge. So this is something we talk about a lot, and we will actually devote a webinar just on challenging thoughts. But the overview is just to write down negative thoughts and enlist all the reasons they may not be true. And then imagine someone you love or care about that had these thoughts. What advice would you give them? So the pros is it can help you shift your negative thinking. Help you get away from thoughts that aren't moving you forward. And if you are more factual, like kind of questioning the thoughts, you can kind of help decrease the emotionality of those thoughts. But the cons are the more emotional you feel, the harder this is to do, because sometimes you can't get out of the emotion. And feelings of shame can make this also very hard because you can't stop and kind of get outside of your body to think about your thought. So a quick example might be we're all back at work, we're at our new normal, and a coworker walks past you in the hall, appropriately distanced, of course, and they don't smile. So you're thinking, oh my gosh, what have I done wrong? Did I mess up that last report? Well, if you stop and take those negative thoughts and say, well, you know what? Maybe she's having a bad day, or maybe she's stressed, or maybe, she's not feeling well. So you kind of take it and challenge that thought and go, next time I see her, I'll just check in with her. But again, we spend a lot of time on this in groups, and we will spend more time on it in future webinars. Accessing your higher self, so this is where you basically help someone else. You kind of get out of your own life and into something bigger, so to speak. You can smile at strangers and see how many smiles you get back. That might be a little hard now that we're all wearing masks, but when we get back to not wearing masks, you can do randomly kind things for others, volunteer, pet animals, join a cause, or just pray to your higher power. So the point of this is just kind of getting outside yourself and your situation and kind of join to a greater power or a cause that you believe in. So this reminds us that everyone has values, and the purposes can be found in small as well as large things. And the cons is, don't try this and try to rescue the world if you need to focus on yourself. And of course, this was when my cat was supposed to come in, and I was supposed to be able to pick up my cat and pet my cat, but she's camera shy, so she's not showing up today.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. This one, definitely, it's about getting outside of yourself. When we're in those moments feeling really stressed or having a hard time, it can get really easy to have more of that tunnel vision, and we're just focused on what's going on with us or kind of the immediate. And so this is just a way of saying getting connected to something outside of yourself. Maybe if it's just playing with kids, or playing with your animals, or petting your animals or your pets, that's something that's getting you outside of yourself. You're caring for others, or even just getting involved in a cause that you care about. It doesn't always have to be spiritual, but definitely this could also be spiritual practices too. So anything that helps you kind of get connected to something outside of yourself, that can be really helpful in those moments of stress.
The last category is safety planning, and we're going to repeat the numbers that we mentioned the first at the top of the webinar. So if you're in a crisis, you need emergency safety planning or looking for emergency shelter, call our hotline at 214-946-4357. If you want longer term safety planning or counseling, the number for Genesis Counseling is 214-389-7700. And why safety planning is so important and is a coping skill, because it will help us cope in the future. And it's always best to try to plan when you're not in the middle of an emergency situation. That's not always practical, we understand that, but when you can think about things and get factual and make logistical choices, that's the best way to put in a plan. And also, if you have this plan in place, it's going to help you increase your resilience to the potential trauma, and it's going to foster a sense of empowerment. So it's very important, if you're in a domestic violence relationship, to have a safety plan in place to help you cope with any emergency or future trauma.
Mm-hmm. And also too, this can apply to emotional safety planning as well. So of course, physical safety is so important, and being able to plan for potential physical concerns and physical safety concerns. But this is also emotional safety too. So like Belinda said, in a moment where maybe you are more overwhelmed or you are in a more of an emotional crisis state, it might be hard to think back and think about this webinar and think, well, what were all those things that they talked about? Or what are all these different coping skills I could try? And so even writing down a plan and saying, okay, when I'm feeling overwhelmed, I'm going to go on a walk and I'm going to practice deep breathing. And then I'm going to call a friend for support. writing that plan down, that way you have that in mind whenever you do need it. That can also be a part of safety planning.
And is our information to contact us, but I just wanted to leave that screen up for a while so you could write down the information if you needed to. But to conclude, as Victoria just mentioned, there's a lot of coping skills that we went over today, and no way we even got close to listing all of them. So don't feel overwhelmed. Pick a couple to start and try, see if they work, see if you need to change them a little bit. But remember, even small strategies can pay off. During this stay-at-home order, I was having a little bit difficulty with separating work and my home life. So what I did, very simple, is every night I would actually shut down my computer. So work was technically shut down for the day. And that really helped me separate work and personal time. I didn't think it was going to help because it was such a small step, but it really did help for me, just separating the two, which is important. So again, they can be small, they can be large, they can be short-term, they can be long-term. There's a variety of coping skills. And if you do need to contact us, there is our information in front of you, and we would be glad to help. Thank you for joining us today, and we hope we have kind of helped you either affirm the fact you're using coping skills or giving you some new ones to try.
Yes. And I would just leave everyone with a note of, continue to practice. These might feel really strange at first, or if you try a new coping skill, like for example, meditation, or, even if you tried that hand massage and at first it didn't feel like it helped, I'd really encourage you to keep practicing and keep finding what works for you. Because, the more that you do it, the more comfortable it will feel, and it will be more effective for you the more that you're practicing too.
Well, thank you again for joining us, and we hope to see you in future webinars.
Bye.
Bye.